Hey guys, this is Ruben again with another backstory to one of our Red Alpha original designs. On this design, I'm sticking with the Armor of God apparel line. We still have a few more that we need to upload, and so this is one that we created several years ago, and just to kind of give you a backstory on the concept of this right here. We all know the story in the Bible of the prodigal son that he goes to the father and he asks his father to give him everything that belongs to him, and the father does, and so he goes out and he spends it, on a wild life, and then ends up returning right to the father. And that's basically the story of the prodigal son returning back to the father, right? And so a lot of times whenever I'm coming up with concepts for designs, especially if we're doing parody designs for like movies or shows or any current event type uh, type design, I always like to think in terms of like an alternate ending or an alternate scene or an alternate universe where, you know for example, this right here, where the prodigal son never came back. And so he goes out and he lives his life, and the prodigal son ends up becoming a prodigal man. And so when you look at, and then I wanted to make it in kind of modern times, so to speak. So in this design, you see a man in his business suit. He's looking back, and you see his family, his wife, and his children, just silhouettes of them, right? Nothing, you can't really picture them, but it's silhouettes of a family, and the prodigal man is leaving them to to chase his dreams, to become something for someone else that he and at the expense of his family. Now, I've always embraced the idea of the man being the head of the household, and being the priest of his home, and I've always really made an emphasis, on being present, on being, not only a provider in terms of financial provision, but also being the type of man that provides with direction on where the family is going, right? To provide a vision for the family. And so I've always done my best to be that type of husband and that type of father. And I've even adopted, a philosophy. This was back whenever I worked in ministry, and it was, you know, um, I said, I refuse to be better for anybody else than what I am for my wife. And I said, if I'm ever a better brother Ruben or better, this ministry leader, or if I'm ever a better friend or a better community, person in the community than I am for my wife and children, then I got my priorities wrong. And so that type of mindset is what kind of helped inspire this design of the prodigal man. And I think that it's relevant today's time because, on one hand you want to be the provider in terms of financial security, but then on the other hand you're sacrificing being the provider in terms of a vision for your family. I believe that God's plan for our life as men is to be able to not only be the provider in terms of financial security, but also be the one to speak life into our wife and our children and the gift that is inside of them. I believe that us as men can speak to that and cause it to flourish. We can tell our sons and our daughters, we can speak life into them, and we can speak the will of God into our family as men. But a lot of times we look at being a provider as just someone who is putting food on the table. And yes, that is a big part of it, but not at the expense of being the priest of your home, of being a husband to your wife, and being a father to your children, right? And so you have to refuse to be better for anybody else. Refuse to be better for your company than what you are for your wife and children. Refuse. This is going to probably ruffle some feathers, but refuse to be better for your church than what you are for your wife and children. And that's where the prodigal man comes up. This prodigal man might be going to a church conference. He might be going to a man's ministry meeting. He might be going to go feed the homeless. He might be going to actually do what we think that we need to do for God's kingdom, but at the expense of not being who he needs to be for his family. So, anyways, I just wanted to share the backstory. Hopefully, I didn't ruffle too many feathers, but this is what inspired this design. Anyways, God bless you. Be blessed and nothing less.